Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Sealed for Good. I'm your host Shandy. Today we'll be talking to an esteemed guest, David Previte. We hope you enjoy. David Previte, he's instrumental in working with waterproofing compliance, both through his role as the president of AIW and also with his own business, Waterproofing Integrity. David, welcome.
Thanks, man. I appreciate the invitation to come out here. It's actually my very first time being in Adelaide.
Yeah, okay. Well, we hope you enjoy.
Definitely. I'm also looking forward to meeting some AIW members while I'm here as well. So appreciate the invitation and looking forward to our chat today.
Awesome. Hopefully it's not the last time we have you down here. So we've got a few questions just to ask you, just to introduce you to our audience that may not know you. Myself, I'm familiar with a lot of your work through the AIW and also through Waterproofing Integrity. What the work that's happened under your tenure as president AIW is noticeable. It seems to be an organisation that continues to grow, memberships are growing, and something that does offer a lot of value to the general waterproofing industry. So we thank you for that. But to get started, want to get a feel for your origins and on motivation. So what led you into the waterproofing industry?
I think that's a really good question. And I enjoy asking that question to a lot of people I meet in the industry because almost all the time the answer is kind of by accident.
Yeah.
We've fallen into it and we enjoy it and we stay in it. And I think that's partly because it is a very niche space, right? So as we start growing our skills in this space that we didn't expect to be in, and then we find that there's actually value in those skills, and then you're encouraged to grow a little bit more. And that's sort of what my role was. I fell in by accident when I was very young, around 19, studying engineering and then construction management part-time at university, needed to support myself. So I was studying part-time, working full-time. And I was working, doing waterproofing work, installation work, and then it sort of just grew from there, on-site stuff into estimating, into contracts, admin, quality, project management, all of that sort of stuff up through contracting. And then it would have been about 6 years ago now, I think, that it sort of occurred to me that, hey, there is kind of a lot of issues happening in the industry, and maybe there would be a benefit in a third-party independent service, because I know exactly what it's like being a contractor on site that is there to get the job done. You don't get paid for the day unless you get some meters down. And there is a little bit of a conflict there. So I thought, hey, maybe there's some value in that independent service to look at, okay, is this exactly the way it should be? And yeah, the rest is history.
No, well, it's critical. Understanding the challenges is a big part of what we do as well, right? Is we need to know where the pain points are, and then from there we can talk about the solutions and advice. In our case, it's always about product installation, recommending the right product for the right application as well. So yeah, it's a critical sort of part of the waterproofing space. And as you probably know from experience, a lot of the issues that we do see is due to those challenges. Things aren't prepared correctly, or the advice isn't sound, that we just discussed before as well. So yeah, that's very, very valid. So what kind of services does Waterproofing Integrity offer? So what sort of do you do in that space?
Yeah, so we started out in that installation stage. That was our initial thing, was quantitative testing. We wanted to be able to go out and not only throw our opinion around and say, we don't think that looks good enough, right? So what I did was take a series of tests that were applied to other protective coatings and standards that already existed, and I brought them over to be applied to waterproofing systems. So the first phase of Waterproofing Integrity was that, using devices to quantitatively measure how good and consistent the installation was. And then we sort of grew from there as the value was proven in that, and we started having our clients ask for other things, such as, oh, well, we now need to make sure our designs are good before we get to site. Can you help with that? And yes, we grew that department as well, and even into remedial. We started off being a prevention is better than a cure company. There were already engineers working in the remedial space. So we wanted to be the ones on the front end that tried to mitigate that as much as possible. But as our client base grew, they inevitably had some sort of existing problems they wanted us to close. So now we sort of work across the full spectrum of waterproofing consulting. The only thing we don't do is installation. I don't do any of that anymore. And of course, we don't supply any materials because that's your specialty.
Yeah. No, so really a holistic approach. So as you said, And that's something that echoes with us as well, is preventative, the issues, like we always prefer the phone call before the job commences and the phone call at the end of the job when something's gone wrong. So again, very, very critical stuff. So obviously, like just hearing you talk now, initially with this sort of interview, you're obviously very passionate. What drives that passion, do you think?
I think it is being able to make an impact on things, right? Like, I think we all like to think that when we go to work every day, we're improving something. We're not just showing up for the paycheck. We're actually leaving a lasting mark on the industry. And I think that's something that really drives me, is that I think I'm confidently able to say that if I did leave waterproofing tomorrow, I've left it in a better state than I came in, right? And I think it should be a goal that everyone should have as well.
Look, I think that's the best type of motivation. If you can get up and, you're passionate about what you do, I think typically you will leave an impact, right?
Yeah.
And I see it with even just the contractors that we deal with. It's very obvious which ones really care about what they're doing.
Yeah.
Generally, they're the ones that are calling before, as opposed to the ones that go there just to do the job, earn an income, which, it's a function that we all need to provide as well.
Yeah. I think the good thing is that when you're doing that, it will provide value and you will be compensated for it.
Yep.
So it's
Correct.
not mutually exclusive from I either, help make things better or I make good money. No, they're actually very interwoven. I found that to be true.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'd agree with that. All right. So I suppose the next section really would like to sort of dig into the AIW, sort of the kind of things that have been going on. So what role does AIW play in representing the waterproofing industry?
Oh, I think representing the waterproofing industry is the answer to that, right? So our members consist of people that are at the coalface of waterproofing, really, whether that's installing the materials, developing and supplying the materials, or developing designs or remedial solutions or anything like that. That's the majority of our members. And it's really what we're focused on, is giving value back to those people, whether it's through opportunities that come through our members' database, or whether it's through education on topics that they want to know more about, or even the advocacy that we try to put out whenever there's an opportunity to have a regulation change, whether it's the NCC or the standard or some state-based regulation. We want to have as much a hand in that as possible to get good outcomes for the industry and good outcomes for our members.
Yeah, makes sense. So how can members get more involved with the AIW?
Well, the very first answer to that is become a member if you're not already. Your membership fee will go to all of those things, and we're constantly increasing the scope of what we want to give back to our members. And the second thing is see where you can contribute. For any of the committees or subcommittees that are part of the AIW, they're always looking for people that will help. And even if that's just a part of showing up to events and engaging with other people, I promise you'll get a lot out of it. That's my single favorite thing about being part of the AIW, is talking to like-minded people, bouncing ideas around about current problems or maybe the future direction of the industry.
So why is having a dedicated body like the AIW important for industry?
It's to have the voice, the collective voice of everyone. We all have our own thoughts and opinions and that sort of thing, but that's not really going to achieve anything unless we can unify that voice and lobby the right parties about where we want to be. Whether it's you're a contractor and you feel like your contribution to the project isn't being respected, that's something we advocate for, right? Even though it's somewhat obvious that a leaking building is bad. It's raining outside right now and we'd be having a pretty bad time if water was leaking in it. It's obvious, but it still seems to need that push in the industry to really get the understanding. And that's just one example of what we want to try and do to raise the bar and perception of waterproofing as a trade in the industry.
Yeah, so we always talk about out of sight, out of mind when it comes to most waterproofing applications.
Yep.
So apart from the rooftop, generally the waterproofing, when we're talking about, the type of range of products that we supply, it's below ground, it's under tiles, it's under screeds. And yeah, sometimes it does struggle to be taken seriously. And you're right, if it's just one voice that's, trying to project this, you're not going to have the same impact as when you have an organization that, if you're part of it, it actually backs you and tries to support, as we mentioned before, these pain points.
Yeah,
So
it's a by members for members
yeah,
sort of mentality
nice.
is really where we want to push things.
Yeah, excellent. And from a personal perspective, like what are your sort of proudest achievements since being president and part of your tenure?
I think it's just the enhanced value that we're providing to members. So I think there's two main things. The first one was that when I came in, and in credit to everything that was done prior to my instatement as president, but one big issue that I saw is that a lot of member dollars were going to admin, which was just handling back-end tasks, managing membership renewals and updating databases. There was a lot of manual work going on there, which was time-consuming and costly.
Yeah.
So it took some time, but we've largely automated and streamlined everything now so that the process of signing up new members, renewals, everything like that is either managed automated or it's managed by the members through their profile. And that leads me into point number 2 is, because we're able to free up those resources, we've now been redirecting them into, okay, well, what's the thing that's going to give the most value to members? And what we arrived at was a lot of events that is both educational but also networking, gives everyone an opportunity to meet other people in the industry, maybe as a source of work or a source of knowledge or some form of partnership that helps us all be better. So I'd say those two things. We streamlined a lot, we reallocated those resources, and now I think we're providing a lot more value to the members than ever before. And credit to everyone involved that achieved that.
No, that's excellent. So yeah, I'd be proud of that too. So well done.
Thank you.
All right. So I suppose the other part that you play as well, that's again crucial and sort of overreaching for everyone involved in waterproofing, is your involvement with compliance and the standards committees and stuff like that. Could you give our audience sort of a bit of an overview of what's involved in that and sort of how that process is driven?
You mean as far as how the NCC and the Australian standards
and the standards,
work?
Being part of the committee, how decisions are made, as briefly as you can. I know it's a pretty,
It is. Look, I think I'll explain sort of two things. So first of all, at a high level, how our codes and regulations work. Our NCC is our governing document. It's largely based on performance requirements, which is the outcomes that needs to be achieved. And then those standards are adopted documents, which gives you a pathway or a recipe on how you can achieve and satisfy those. So that's our overall structure. When you start looking at standards and how they're being revised, the internal waterproofing standard was done just a couple of years ago. External waterproofing standard is being revised by the same committee now. And it's an interesting process. It's very highly regulated. There needs to be net benefit analysis done, proving the point of, okay, what's the value to the industry and to the broader economy in making this change, the proposed changes to the standards. So you have to go through that net benefit analysis, and then it goes into a very lengthy process, talking through all of the clauses and changes with the committee until it finally gets to public comment. Public gets to make their comments on it. The committee reviews those and implements it before it finally gets published. And then that's a published standard that can be adopted into the new NCC in the future. So very, very long process, but we've got to be careful about these things, right? Because making a mistake can cause a lot of difficulties, because once it's locked in, it's locked in. And there are a couple of things that were maybe less than ideal that slipped through with the internal waterproofing standard, and they'll have to be rectified in the future. And it's something the industry's just trying to deal with now until that happens.
Yeah, so that's a good point that you bring up. So I remember when the 2021 AS 3740 was brought in and adopted, and we were inundated with calls from builders and contractors just trying to maneuver the way around it. The biggest criticism that I ever hear when it comes to standards from our customer base is just sometimes it feels convoluted or complex. It's sort of not done in a way that's sequenced as you would a waterproofing application that makes it practical for, say, the end user or the person installing the product. And I suppose we were briefly discussing this earlier, where all parties need to understand the components that they're responsible for and work in collaboration with those parties, right? So you have your business as waterproofing integrity. You can look at design, make sure things work, that they're going to function as per the design that's been proposed. And then from the other end, from the end user end or the applicator, they need to understand that, yep, you need to follow these details, plus you have these applicator details from the manufacturer. And I suppose the role we play when it comes to sort of the standards, obviously we have to understand it and see if there's anything there that we need to adapt in our technical data sheets to align with the new requirements. But also we try and then make the application process as practical as possible, right? Because we understand that our main customer base is the person installing the product. But it seems that a lot of the time what's actually missing is that understanding that there's responsibilities that are, really specifically for people outside the applicator sort of space, the builder, the designer. And, here in SA, if I could speak sort of more locally, it's something that we continue to struggle with, right? They come to us for all these questions and they expect us to have all these answers, but they definitely need to go to other parties. Everyone should have a copy of the standards. Everyone should have a basic understanding of how the NCC works, and sort of unravel it from there. But yeah, we sort of have the easier end of the job by the sounds of it, compared to being involved in committees and having a look at
it is, yeah. Like I think it sort of goes without saying that no one sets out to make these things difficult to read or purposely problematic. But when you imagine there's 20 plus people involved in these committees, so that each little area has a voice, from drains to shower screens to membranes to installation and all of these other things, and that's a good thing at face value, right? You want everyone that's related to say, oh, hey guys, but you forgot about this thing that's relevant to me. But then you also have the struggle of trying to somehow cover that in there in a clear and concise way. And I think that's the real challenge, because even the committee, like I mentioned, the process will often go for a year and a half or more. And there is a such thing as being too close to it as well. It starts to make sense to everyone involved in the committee because they've talked it around in circles, but someone outside reads it and is like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah.
So it is a difficult thing to juggle. And I think, when you're also looking at timelines and pressure, which gratefully it hasn't been the case too much with the external waterproofing standards. So I think we're all hoping to see a higher quality of document compared to what happened with the internal, which was kind of rushed to make sure that it could be adopted into the NCC 2022 when it came out. That should result in higher level of quality and clarity, and yeah, I think it'll be good.
Oh, excellent. So the other topic that we'd like to sort of discuss with you as well is more around system compatibility and product compatibility. So why do so many issues arise from incompatible sort of products out there that you've sort of experienced?
I think my best answer for that would be it's because there are too many fingers in the pie. Sometimes, like, we do a lot of design work on the front end, and when we put something together, we put forward a cohesive system that we know is going to work together, that has a high degree of accountability for how those products work together through warranties and so on. And then when other parties start getting involved, if there's an aesthetic element to it, the architect might be involved. If there's a cost, the builder or the waterproofing contractor might be getting involved as well to try to mix and match for commercial reasons. And that makes it very difficult, because could it work? Yes, it might work. They might be compatible, but is there any evidence? I think there's so many different product suppliers and products, it's very unreasonable to think that those suppliers have gone and tested their products with all of the other products on the market, right? Like, it's practically impossible to do.
Yeah.
So therefore, you don't know that it's going to work. It could work, but why would you put yourself in that position?
Yeah, and I suppose the other issue that we find a lot of the time is sometimes these things are rushed as well. So, the products are on site and then they ask the question. So the one we come across quite regularly is sort of the micro cement type products.
Yep.
Can this go over the membrane that's been installed? It's your membrane, right? And you're right, unless we have actual specific data testing that we've conducted to ensure that it's compatible and have some values around, adhesion, strength and things like that, it's not really an answer that a manufacturer can really freely give something, an answer to. So, it does definitely make it challenging. So, we do advise, if you're sort of watching this, is have confirmation of compatibility if it is going to be a mix of products or maybe a standalone product like a texture coat or a render that don't have a complete system. Get in contact with manufacturers. We always advise, come to us, we can advise you, but also go and talk to the finish that might be applied over and get their thoughts and their approval as well. So
yeah, and those stuff are normally part of the design at the design stage. It just needs better communication between, say, the waterproofing designer, which is what we do, and the architect, which is going to be nominating all of these finishes, right? So all of this stuff can be worked through and designed completely with a high level of confidence at the start. My best advice is to the others that come in later, whether it's the builder or the waterproofing contractor, is stick to the plan, because there's probably a lot more thought that's gone into how it all works together than you have visibility on at the moment. So every time you make a suggestion, designer like myself is probably going to say, okay, it could work, but it's your responsibility now. We've done our job. We put forward something we know will work. If you want to do something that might work or might not, it's your risk.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So whose responsibility is it for ensuring system compatibility on a project?
Ties in well to what we were just discussing. I think the best answer is that it's everyone's.
Yeah.
Right? Like, say we did follow the dream process, which is you design something and then you build it, rather than designing it and then changing it and changing it and changing it while you build. So we follow that process, but designs also might be imperfect. Maybe there was something that a skilled installer has knowledge on around sequencing of work that is relevant that the designers didn't pick up.
So what do you think should happen, what the process should look like to confirm compatibility?
I like that one, because I think it starts out with all the parties that are involved knowing exactly what they're responsible for, and then respecting the other parties for what they're bringing to it. And for example, RLA products, I'm going to be relying on you to tell me exactly how they work together, what service conditions they're going to be suitable for, and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And then what I would see my part as is taking that knowledge and applying it to a project design, interfacing with other elements such as drainage and facade and all of that sort of thing. And then the installing contractor and or builder, they're going to look at sequencing and say, okay, well, this is going to be a problem here because we need to build this in this order. And if every party knows what they're actually contributing to the design, then they know that they're liable for that part of it, so that they can really focus in on that and then assist and engage with the other parties. So I think that's the best way to handle it.
Yeah, which is a really reoccurring theme, right? The communication and everybody understanding the part that everyone else plays in the whole process to achieve a successful outcome.
Yep.
So in your opinion, and based on your experience, is it acceptable to sort of mix different systems and products from here and there?
Not if you want to be confident in the outcome that you're getting. And I don't just mean outcome of will it work or won't it work. I mean that everyone's responsible for their part, right? As soon as you start using different products, different suppliers, then you say, okay, you're not accountable anymore, right? And you take that, if you're the builder or the waterproofing contractor and you make, or the designer, and you take that choice on yourself. And you're not the person that knows best about those products, right? So that's the main reason I'd say is accountability. If in worst case something ever was to go wrong, you want to make sure that everyone's tied in and accountable for their respective thing. And I think that's the biggest risk and why I would discourage it, even though different products can technically be compatible.
Yeah. So I think the big one for us is we know the way that we test and confirm performance of our products and the overlays that we supply as well, right? So levelers, screeds, all the products that sort of overlap and come in contact with each other, we have data on performance to ensure that they're going to function the way that we claim.
Yep.
Right. So the minute that you then bring in other products, we have no way of knowing how that product was tested. We see a lot, unfortunately, still in the industry with tile adhesives, where our process is we do all the internal testing in house. We have our R&D based in Melbourne. Confirm performance, and then we send it to Europe, the products, to get the CE mark done as well. So third-party lab, it's a notified lab. So we're pretty confident when it comes to how our tile adhesives are going to then bond to our membranes. The minute you introduce another adhesive, if they haven't gone through the same, rigorous sort of testing, there's no way for us to really ensure that we can guarantee performance.
Yeah, and then that, say, builder or designer that approved that is taking the liability of that unknown, right? Because I find that an easy way to look at it is when you boil it down, it's as simple as asking, would you rather choose something that you know because you have evidence works, or would you rather save 5% and go with something that you have no evidence is going to work? It's kind of, when you put it like that, it's kind of an easy choice to make, right?
Yep. Yep. And sometimes, you know, even the question of compatibility, right? We get it all the time. Is this compatible with that? So a lot of the time the answer is pretty simple, and it can be yes, right? So yeah, that's a cement-based product on another cement-based product. As far as are they going to react adversely with each other? No. Is it compatible? Yes, but there's no guarantee on overall performance, which is sometimes where things can be sort of misinterpreted, right? So yeah, that will stick to that, but how well, you know, for how long, under what conditions, you know? So that's where the big question marks will arise.
Yeah, I find myself saying the word confidence a lot. What level of confidence are you achieving with your solution?
Yeah.
And if you're going to make a change that drops the level of confidence, you should have a really good reason for doing that.
Yeah. Because the bag's cheap is probably not one of them, huh?
No. I think there's enough evidence in the industry of things going pear-shaped and costing 10, 20, 30 times whatever that saving was.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so industry pain points. So we've sort of covered a couple, but what are the biggest challenges you see facing the waterproofing industry?
It's kind of an easy one for me, and I say this from my own personal experience, waterproofing integrity's perspective, the AIW's perspective, is that I still think that waterproofing isn't respected enough for what we actually contribute to a building or a structure, right? And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. So it'd take us all day to discuss it.
Yep.
But there are things that we all do every day as well, as such as, you know, a waterproofing contractor that's just started competing on price and driving prices down. That means he's only got X amount of time or dollars to do a job. He's not going to get a good quality job done. We need to be changing that. We need to be creating more respect for what we do by achieving good outcomes, drawing a line in the sand about what we want to do. We want to deliver good products. We want to deliver good installations and good designs. And I think that's the biggest challenge. I think we're still fighting a bit of an uphill battle from these long-lasting perceptions that a waterproofer is just a guy off the street with a roller and whatever bucket he picked up on the way into the... I still think we've come a long way, but we're not out of that yet.
Yeah, no, definitely. We still experience that day to day. So a lot of what I do is, you know, dealing with issues that arise precisely for that reason. It's a lack of respect for what the applicator is actually there to do. I've actually got some models I'll show you later of some typical surfaces and the way that they receive a job, and then with the expectation that they're still going to be able to, you know, deliver on that time restraint or time frame with a quality outcome, but there's so many extra things that they'll have to prepare before they can even start with their application. So yeah, cost is a big one as well. We see, you know, always what's, you know, have you have an alternative to this product because it's not economical enough?
Yeah.
You know, we should be asking the question, you know, is it going to give you the best outcome? You know, not so much the price of the product, but what are the performance characteristics? You know, what's going to make my life easier? What's the system involved? You know, what are the accessories that come with this product that's going to make, you know, the overall performance better? So yeah, we're definitely still not where we need to be. I could tell you that for sure with the inquiries that I get. So no, I think I agree with you completely on that point. Are there misconceptions or outdated practices that you still come across out there? So what would be the one that would stand out to you?
I would say now it is definitely outdated for a waterproofer not to know their standards, right? Like maybe in the past, we're at a point where the builder didn't value it and you could just show up and you could just install whatever. But now there's a lot more emphasis on it. And really, if you're in our industry, and I'd actually put the challenge out to anyone, you don't belong in this industry if you're a waterproofer that's showing up still without knowing the basics of the standard, or at least knowing what they contain so you can go and reference them whenever you need to, daily, weekly, or whatnot. Because if you're showing up and you don't, you're lowering the bar for everyone else here. You're lowering the bar of quality and expectations. And yeah, I think that's outdated. And I'd add one more thing on top of that. It's maybe a bit New South Wales centric, but because of the regulations that changed there, almost every project, well, at least on apartment buildings and whatnot, they have full designs for a building even if there's a unique junction or something, that has a design where someone like us has spent hours and hours designing it and making sure it all works together to the best of what we could at the time. It's already been planned. And if you're a waterproofer or a builder that's showing up and not thinking, oh, let me have a look at the design, that's very outdated attitude.
Yeah, and look, I agree with that. I would go further and say, if you are one of those guys, you're still not using the standard, or you're not understanding how to interpret it, or what components really pertain to you and the application, that there's a lot of options for education now, right?
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that I suppose has been a positive sort of change, where you have, all manufacturers offer a level of training, but even beyond that, you have, waterproofing for construction, cert threes that are available. You can do RPL. So if you're currently waterproofing and you're scared of going back to the classroom, like there's other, ways to sort of pathways to get through it. But understanding definitely what your responsibilities are, and understanding that a lot of those responsibilities are spelt out for you in the standards, it's definitely a critical component of your job.
Yeah.
And I completely agree. You need to be aware of it. If you can't interpret it, we advise guys all the time, get a copy, right? We can't give you or share with you our copies, but we can definitely look at it together. You have your copy, open it up. We have ours, we open it up, or we can have a discussion, make sure that we're all on the same page. If there's still a level of confusion of what needs to happen, then there's people like yourself that offer additional services that can really, pinpoint exactly what needs to be done. And if it's not in the standard, your services are there again to provide that design detail.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you're correct when you said maybe it was different 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
When the AIW wasn't doing events every single month, both in person and online, where you can do it. We have online resources as well in the members section. There's so many different training providers, manufacturers, you provide training. There's so many resources now that argument of, okay, I don't know the standard, but I don't know how to learn, it's just completely invalid now.
Yeah.
So that's why it's outdated.
Yeah, and the big thing that we're seeing at the moment is a bit of a transition, right? And I think you touched on it before about the time that it takes to do a quality job and the rates that waterproofers are expecting to get, or the builders are expecting to pay for those services.
Yep.
Right. Once you understand all the component, what's involved in your trade, you'll find that you're probably not at the rate that you should be as well, right? You're not allowing yourself sufficient time to complete that job accurately. And you're not going to know that unless you do educate yourself. And again, understanding the standards of what your responsibilities are in that document.
Yeah, and that's a tough one, and one I think on a lot. And it's a great shame, I think, that I'd really like to move past, that there are veteran waterproofers out there that know their skill inside and out. They do, waterproofing, whether it's liquid or sheet, that looks so perfect it's like a piece of art, like out of a catalog or that sort of thing, right? And those guys are still competing on builders' tenders against someone that started a brand and got their logo done yesterday and plan on buying a roller and a bucket and going to the job tomorrow.
Yep.
They'll be, in the builder's mind, these are apples for apples. And I think that is really a big shame, right? It shows very little recognition of what we, all of us in the industry actually offer. And it's, like I said, something I really want to promote, that difference to the industry for the sake of our members, because we'll find out that people don't want to get into this profession. Why would anyone get into a profession where, as your skill and experience goes up, you aren't acknowledged and compensated, right? It's how we stay exactly where we are or go backwards. So I think it's a really important one.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So what do you think, if you could change one thing, what's the one thing that would need to change in the industry to make it better, to improve it?
It's actually an easy one thing for me, and you'd probably expect me to talk something about quality inspections or design or something like that, right? But not really. It's actually to do with the waterproofing contractors. I think it's the greatest shame of our industry at the moment that veteran waterproofers that have the best detailing I've ever seen, it looks like it's come out of a magazine, whether it's liquid or sheet, it looks immaculate. They're still competing daily against waterproofing contractors that just started a business yesterday, and they're probably going to buy a bucket of liquid membrane on the way to the project and put it down. They're being asked to tender directly, and there's no no credit given to what they actually bring to the project with the confidence that they have on getting good outcomes. I think that's a great shame, and I think it's something that I personally want to see improved. I think it'll be better for the industry holistically. Builders won't have delays. We're going to have confident outcomes. We're not going to have leaking buildings as much anymore. And that's the one thing I'd really like to see change, is just that recognition and raising the bar on what we expect and how we acknowledge the difference between experienced and inexperienced contractors.
Yeah, well, I was just talking to you off camera before about a particular contractor that just started out here in Adelaide, and he's forever on the phone with us, and it seems to be the battle that he has to fight is about doing the right thing. And the reason for that is his clientele or the builders that he's working for, they're so used to just accepting whatever the bar has been set at the moment, right? So unfortunately, the bar isn't where it should be, and he's struggling to get his services across because he does want to spend the time to do things right. He's checking, he's calling up, making sure that, you know, a simple one like having a piece of cement sheet over timber and not waterproofing directly on timber. Yeah. And his builder or his client will argue with him saying, oh, well, the other guys don't do that. So yeah, I definitely agree. And
that's also a good level of pride, right? Like we need new blood coming into the industry, and we want people that take pride, because the truth is no one's going to get involved in any career where, as they develop their skills and experience, that they aren't respected and compensated. We need to have that progression for the health of the industry, and not just for, you know, supply and design and install, but for the builders and the architects that are designing these things. I know I can tell you straight out now that if I have a design, I want the best installer executing it, because I don't want to be associated with the bad outcome. Correct. I'm sure you don't want any products associated with bad outcomes either.
So any questions for us as a...
I do have one question I think is very relevant to the concept of raising the bar in the industry, which is a good thing for all of us, right? And I'd really just want to ask is, what is RLA and Gripset doing, in your opinion, that contributes to raising that bar and getting more recognition for what waterproofing contributes?
Yeah, so I suppose from a more sort of general sort of standpoint, it's all about continuous improvement, right? And that means a lot of things in our business. So from concept stage of the products, for example, we have a large R&D, dedicated R&D team. I think the membrane team is the largest in our R&D department. Innovating products, making products that outperform our current range, and always that evolution of what can be achieved with the waterproofing products that we supply, right? So, innovation through products, our sheet membrane systems. But I suppose talking more to the point you were making just earlier, it's about the education piece and consistency, right? So we do want to be associated with the best that the industry has to offer when it comes to installation, right? And we actively engage those contractors. And at the same time, we also engage with the contractors that maybe aren't quite there yet, right? We try to connect these people together. So currently in New South Wales, we have a trainer there by the name of George. Very experienced, I'd consider him an expert with our sheet systems, and we have him conducting the sheet training in New South Wales, right? So it just creates that really good environment where you can learn off other people's experiences. You can, it's relatable because it's an active contractor. We do the same in Victoria with Steve Gretsch there, really experienced, passionate trainer and applicator. Again, we're connecting that and trying to lift the bar that way actively. We see every time I get an issue come across my desk, then I always try to engage with that contractor and try to turn it around, turn that negative into a positive. Look, this is what was missed here, but it's not the end of the world. These are things that we can do. Do you want me to send someone out? How can we upskill you, right? And we don't always have all the answers, or we're not always the solution for those particular issues. The solution is being proactive a lot of the time, seeking out training, like we mentioned before. So yeah, we do a lot of training. That's what we try to do. And just, instruction that's easy to follow, understanding who our customer base is, understanding their challenges and what we can offer in ways of simplifying solutions. It's like that, the more touch points you have on an application, the higher the margin or the risk is of error, right? So human error is just a fact of life. You can have the best contractor in the world and he can still have a bad day, right? So if we try to make the process as, simple as possible, then it just reduces that risk as well. So I suppose it's, for us, it's always about educating and innovating and making sure that, all our products are where they need to be as far as performance. And it goes back to your philosophy of confidence, right? It's all about confidence. If we can provide the data, the evidence that these products do what we say, and we have a big pool of quality contractors, then, we're doing our part.
Yeah, I think, man, I love the word confidence. And
Yeah.
to me, I'm highly confident in a supplier that is investing in the future of the industry, right? The cost for training,
Yep.
the cost for product R&D, that's a big expense right now that you're not going to see for years and years and years. So that means you're planning on sticking around
Yep.
And hopefully having a better industry in that time. But you're right that it's very reliant on the installing contractors engaging with the process as well. And I think that's the last thing that I'd like to say to any of the contractors out there. I get asked quite often, hey, you're doing designs or inspection, can you refer me some work? And I'll ask one question. I'll say, what CPD have you done in the last 12 months? And if you say, haven't done anything, especially when there's so much available in the market to do, then you've just told me everything that I need to know about your commitment to our trade and our industry.
Yep. So I suppose the other way that we engage is also, they need to be proactive, but we also try to reach them, right?
Yeah.
So through this channel, through social media, we got Ben behind the camera here, who's forever engaging with our contractor friends and,
Nice work, Ben.
showing their work and making sure that it's of a high standard, all that sort of thing as well. So it is a two-way street as well.
Yeah.
You can't have one without the other. We all have to be driving in the same direction to make sure that we get these outcomes. So I just thought I'd add that bit in as well.
Yeah.
Almost forgot.
Yeah.
We're right here.
That's true.
All right. So I suppose with closing, so what advice would you give someone that's just starting out in the waterproofing industry?
I think it's be a part of the industry that you would like to see in the future. Right? If you don't want to be always being driven down to the lowest dollar, then provide value to your clients that's worth more. I think that's the one advice I give to anyone starting out in any career is figure out how to provide more value because then your clients will be willing to compensate you more and you'll have better quality of life and everything like that. So you're only an individual in the industry, but the choices that you make will form the future of our industry as much as the choices that I make do. So keep that in mind. That's what I'd say.
Yep. Excellent. And how can people follow or stay up to date with the work that you're involved with, whether it's waterproofing integrity, you personally?
I guess there's a lot of different
AIW.
channels, but look, I'm on LinkedIn quite a lot, all sorts of social media for my own waterproofing integrity. We have our website where we showcase a lot of different services from design to inspection to remedial scoping and even expert witness services. And of course, the AIW, I strongly recommend you become a member. If you do sign up and you really don't feel like after that first year that you've gotten value out of it, come and talk to me and we will, potentially sort out a refund or something like that. I say that because I'm that confident that with where we're at now and where we're going in the future, you will get value out of it and you won't regret it.
Well, thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us and coming in.
No problem.
Brilliant, very informative. I'm sure everyone watching would agree. If you have any questions, you just heard how to sort of get in touch with David through social media and things like that. You can also add comments to this video and we'll make sure that they get back to David and we can sort of continue from there. But thanks again. Thank you for all the work that you do as well. Yeah, likewise. And until next time.
Till next time.
All right, see ya.
See ya.